So Scott is going to tell us how Jesus has changed his life. So he's going to tell us a bit about what he was like before he met Jesus, and he's going to tell us a bit about what life's been like for him after he met Jesus. Is that all right? Do you want any other sort of introduction?
Well, you didn't tell me there was this many people there, but...
I know, that was the other thing he was panicking about.
No, that's all right. So, in 2001, I found myself inside a flat in Droitwich. There was a knock on the door, so I'll go and answer it. As I peer through the spy hole in the flat door, I can see it's someone I know after more drugs. As I open the door, it is forced open quickly. 5 people burst through the door. I then threw up the wall, and a gun is placed underneath my chair. So what led me to this point? Well, let me take you back to the beginning. I was born in 1981 in Selly, Birmingham. Very soon after I was born, we moved into Romsgrove. My family consisted of my mum, my dad and 2 sisters. I also had 2 stepsisters from my dad's first marriage. My childhood wasn't bad by any means. My mum and dad worked very hard and long hours to provide the things that they thought we needed. When I was a bit older, they sold the house on Sharford and we moved to a house in the country that had a bit of land. We had nice stuff, including an indoor swimming pool, motorbikes, cars, horses and so on. As you can imagine, my mum and dad had to work very hard to provide these things that they thought we needed, and that meant we didn't get to spend much time with them as a family. As they had butcher shops and markets and worked 6 days a week and would be at the meat market in Birmingham for 5:30 in the morning. And they wouldn't get back till 6 p.m, and then they would go to the pub for their downtime. We didn't go on family holidays, we didn't go on days out, or we didn't just hang out together as a family. Looking back, I can see that I didn't receive the love and guidance that I needed and craved, and went looking elsewhere to feel accepted. I started messing around at school and doing things to impress people. This led to me being suspended and later excluded from school, arrested at 15 and taking drugs. This led me down a very different path than the one my family wanted me on. This lifestyle choice made things worse with my relationship with my parents, especially my dad. Being the only son, I was meant to take on the family business and follow in the footsteps of my dad, my uncles and my granddad. This upset my dad, and daily I was told I was thick, I was a waste of space and I would never amount to nothing. I suppose my dad was right in a way, because of the path that I was going down, but I didn't take it as that. I started to believe that I was a bad person, and that just pushed me further down the path further. I had started smoking cannabis at 14, moved on to Class A drugs, and by 1999 I was taking heroin, and a few years later addicted to crack and methadone. In short, that's what led me to being held hostage in a flat with a gun under my chin, with 5 people demanding drugs and money from me, hitting me with a baseball bat and a gun, and other things that I won't mention. I was terrified and I didn't know what to do. However, this event didn't put me off, and I was stuck in that lifestyle for another 15 years. In 2006, I did think my wife was going to be here today, so that's why I've been very, very nice in this sentence. In 2006, I met a beautiful, kind-hearted, thoughtful woman I am now lucky enough to call my wife. However, all this niceness didn't keep me clean or on the straight and narrow, and I spent the next 10 years causing absolute carnage to Sam and the kids' lives. Steve Vincent, who a few of you might have heard of, was unlucky enough to be my drug worker for a fair amount of years. He did his best to help me and to try and get me clean, but I was so stuck in addiction, nothing worked. And to be fair, I wasn't really ready. Sam and Flick later then met at a stay and play in this building, I think, and became friends. So then that was the end of mine and Steve's client and drug worker relationship. I wasn't happy about this at the time because we'd, built a relationship up and I trusted him. But what I didn't know, that this was the start of a very special friendship. And a bit further down the line, I jokingly said to Flick, "Is there a beginner's course in this God stuff?" She turned to me with a big smile and said, "Yeah, we have Alpha starting in a few weeks." I said, "No, it's okay." I was only joking. Flick replied, "We sit down, talk about God, answer any questions, and we even have a free meal." I said, "I'm in." We then got in a few years, probably a year after, 6 months after, we then got invited to the carol service. It was at St John's School at the time. As soon as I walked in, I had this feeling come over me that I had never ever felt before. I now know that feeling to be love. People were coming up to me and asking how I was and was interested about me and my family. They wanted nothing from me in return. Please bear in mind that I was still in addiction and looked and was a complete mess. These people invited me into their homes, fed me, watched movies with me, took me on walks, had conversations with me, and even let me stay over at theirs when Sam kicked me out, which was quite often, to be fair. But more important to me, they were showing me that there was more to life than this brown powder that I'd been putting in my body and had consumed me for 16 years. This was strange to me at first, but it felt so good, and for once in many years I felt important, loved, and that I mattered. In 2014 I took the decision to get baptised. Yes, I was still an addict, but I had seen and felt God's love and wanted what I had seen in others. At my baptism I was given a word from someone that didn't know me, from Luke 22 verse 31. And it says, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift each of you like wheat, but I have pleaded in prayer for you, that your faith should not fail. So when you have repented and turned to me again, strengthen your brothers." At the time I didn't really know what this fully meant, but God did. For 2 weeks after, I felt awesome, like I was in a bubble. But my old ways started to creep back, and I fell into my old life very quickly, worse than ever. And I found myself on bail. The kids was on the at-risk list. We had social services involved. I had to have supervised visits with my kids. I wasn't allowed on my own with them. I'd assaulted my mum and my sister. I was surrounded by people who loved me, but I felt so lonely. So in my eyes, there was only one thing left to do, because I tried everything else, and my parents had tried everything else, and people around me had tried everything else. So I attempted suicide. I took all the tablets, drink and drugs that I could get my hands on, and I ended up in hospital for a week. While I was in hospital, Flick then strikes again. And she says to me over the phone, "Why don't you consider a Christian rehab?" I've never heard of a Christian rehab. Anyway, I googled it. And that led me to starting my recovery journey in 2015 at the Carpenter's Arms. So in preparation for this, I stupidly asked my wife to do a list of a few things what I was like before I met Jesus. She got back to me. She gave me a massive list. 92% of it I can't repeat. But it did include impatient, unpredictable, greedy, and then in brackets, some things never change, untrustworthy, irresponsible, selfish, angry, dishonest, lazy, thoughtless, heartless, bad dad, sex addict, moody, unreliable, and last she's put ugly in big bold letters. And I agree with that. To be fair, when I went into rehab and before I met Christ, I had no confidence, I had no self-worth, I let everybody down. I didn't love anyone or myself. It's been a slower road, but when I look back, God has done a lot of work in me and my life. There's been a lot of firsts in my life. At 36, when I just finished rehab, I bought my own car. I'd never done that. My mum and dad paid for everything. I'd had my first Christmas, my first birthday in 8, 16, 17 years clean. My anger, he's worked on my anger, my jealousy, my controlling behaviour, my negativity. I've now been in employment for the last 8 years. I started as a support worker at the Carpenter's Arms, and I worked my way up, and I've managed all 3 phases, and now I manage a rehab in Wales. And that really goes back to that word that I was given at my baptism, turn around and strengthen your brothers. And for me, that's what I'm doing. I'm helping people that's, from addiction, just walking beside them and teaching them that there's a better way to life than they're stuck in. I mean, if you ask my wife, she'd probably disagree with this, but we're now happily married. We've got a good relationship with my kids. We've got no social services involved. I'm nearly 9 years clean in April. I'll be 9 years clean. And the biggest thing is just being able to navigate this thing called life without using drugs to mask my feelings and emotions. I couldn't handle any emotion. I used when my nan died, and I used at my sister's wedding. It didn't matter if it was happiness or sadness. In 2018, I was called by my mum. And she said, can you quickly go up to the house, which is just over the way there? As she thinks that my dad had died. So I jumped in my car, feeling like my whole world had fell apart. I made my way to my mum and dad's house, committing a few motoring offences along the way. For the whole journey, I was praying for protection, I was praying for guidance, and obviously for my dad. That day my dad did pass away. But looking back, there was a lot of positives from that day that wouldn't have come without Jesus. The first of them, my mum felt that she could trust me and she could ring me. That had never, ever, ever happened. She felt that, I could be the rock of the family. I didn't use drugs is the second one. And third, all my life I looked up to my dad and I wanted to be like my dad and just make him proud. In the next week after my dad's death, I had a number of people contact me, people that I hadn't seen for years, some people I'd started my drug journey with, saying that they had seen my dad out and about at the doctors or down Morrison's, and he just wouldn't shut up of how proud he was of me and that the man that I had became. And I thank you, Jesus, for that, especially for placing people in my life when I needed them the most.
Amazing. I've got a couple of questions, but Scott doesn't know I'm going to do this. I wanted to just open it up. Has anyone here got any questions they would like to ask Scott?
We didn't talk about that.
I know, you didn't agree to that, did you? Now, has anyone? I've got a couple, if not. I'll start with one. What drew you to Jesus? What was it that drew you to Jesus at the start?
So for me, it wasn't... as soon as I walked into that carol service or was around Christian people, it was the love that I'd never felt before, even of my parents. My parents did love me, but I wasn't shown it. And as soon as I walked into that church, I was shown love from people in this church now. I mean, Ben and Sally, they invited me over to theirs. Normally, it was for food. I don't know why. They put me up. Their daughter, I know, had to move into another room to put me up. And I've been out with the Colemans and Steve and Vincent. And it's just little silly things, but, you might think are silly, that meant a lot to me. Just asking how I was. I'd never been asked that. Just to go out for a coffee, I'd never done that. I'd spent 17 years just chasing this little brown powder that I thought was my life.
Thanks. Anyone else? Any questions? I've got one last one then. Some of you will know we have bought a recovery house here in Bromsgrove, so we're looking to set that up for folks in addiction. Can you tell us, having been through it and now worked for 8 years in these houses, what part that played in your journey and what you'd hope to see happen here in Bromsgrove?
Yeah, so when I went to the Carpenter's Arms, like I said, when I first walked into that church, I got the same feeling at the Carpenter's Arms. It felt like a family. People cared about me. People wanted the best for me. They challenged me. They didn't just let me do what I wanted to do, which is what I've done for years. And it was just teaching me that there was a better way, really. And for me, I've sort of lived away from my family for the last 9 years. And we've been praying. I know Steve's been praying and John's been praying for a recovery house at Romsgrove. And I can't wait for that to happen. For me, I want that recovery house to be a safe place for people to come and to learn that there's a better way. For me, it's the little things that matters, like taking people out or asking how they are, like I've said, and just showing them love through ways that, you know, all my life I discounted myself, and I still do now, really. I don't know the Bible as well as John and Steve and blah, 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 blah. But God uses you for your strengths, and He'll put you in people's way that need to come in contact with you. Just simple stuff, just asking how people are, really, and just showing them love. We're done.
Are we done? Anyone else? Yeah, we're done. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Well, for those of you that don't know Scott, get to know him. He's a great guy.
Or you should invite me around for dinner.
And he's got a wonderful family, a lot of whom are here. And not that long ago, 2 weeks now, is it? He became a granddad. Granddad. Wow. Yeah. Congratulations.